Good evening and welcome to Between the Lanes episode number 140. I'm Ron.
I'm Shane.
And we're ready to get going here. So, again, welcome to Between the Lanes episode number 140. You can find us on YouTube. Slot Racers, the channel. You can find us on Facebook. Between the Lanes is the page. And race results. We don't have any race results. There was a AWRA race somewhere last weekend, but no results were posted. So if they get posted,
Confidential.
yeah, confidential. If they get posted, we'll have them on a future episode. So I do know that Nick Ferris won one class, but that's all I know. So tonight we're going to discuss U.S. versus Chinese. And there's been a lot of posts about this on Facebook. Some places are saying that once they get racing again, they're not going to run Chinese motors. They're going to run American motors. And that's fine and dandy. Everybody's open to their choice. But some people are kind of confused on what motors are Chinese and what's American made as far as some of the pro slot stuff goes. So we'll explain that a little bit. So we'll start off with, or maybe this should be a title, America versus the world when it comes to slot car motors, because not all motors are made in China or the USA. Some are made in Brazil, some are made in Europe, and I guess if the mantra is to buy American, then that would include other countries other besides China, in my opinion. So nonetheless, I think I went too far. Well, so when it comes to the motors, the inexpensive sealed type motors, because you have sealed motors and you have open motors in slot racing that you can take apart and service. So in the sealed motors, oh my God, these pictures are like not cooperating. Okay, so you have three types of motors. This is the picture I wanted. You have like the you have the FK type motor, which has the metal end bell, and the can is staked to the end bell to hold it in place. Internal brushes. These motors roughly run in the $12 range. You know, you're talking like Retro Hawks and Hawk 7s and Retro Eagles and like the old TSRF motors and the Falcon 7s. Those are all kind of in the same category when it comes to the Canon end bell. And internal brushes, I'd say over the last year or so, the major differences is magnets, armature winds. Of course, Falcons are no longer available. TRSF motors are no longer available. So basically, it comes down to Mid-America in the JK line of motors in that category. Then you have the sealed type motors, which is a end bell screwed to a can, fold over tabs, and then a seal placed around the screws so you can't take the motor apart. Well, you're not supposed to take the motor apart. I mean, you can take those motors apart and you can service them, but once you take the seal off, they won't be legal where you race if seals are required. So the blue seal motor is the Pro Slot 4002 motor, and the red sealed Pro Slot motor is what they call a Scorpion. So the difference between the blue seal motor is it's a complete assemble made motor in China with a Chinese made armature, and the red sealed Scorpion motor is a Chinese setup, but it has an American made armature, and that motor is assembled in the United States and has the better brushes and springs on it. And going back to that FK type motor with the metal end bell, of course, that's all produced and assembled in China. So I don't know if that's the picture. Yeah, maybe it is. Okay, so Again, the 4002 Pro Slot motor with the Blue Seal, 100% made in China. And that has a retail price currently of $21.95. The Scorpion motor, oh, my pictures are all over the place. So the Scorpion motor, which is the 4007 Pro Slot motor with the American-made arm, the current retail price on that is $59. Now, when you compare the 4002 Blue Seal motor to the 4007 Red Seal motor, and I'll have to ask Shane this here in a second, but of course, the Blue Seal motor, being it's all assembled in China, has not so great a quality of motor brush in it. So usually what most racers do is they'll buy those motors and they will change both the brushes and springs, maybe use Bigfoot brushes or like the Pro Slot G7 brushes, and then the Red Pro Slot springs, and that kind of makes that motor a little bulletproof. But you're adding cost to the motor. So then basically, if you buy a motor, buy brushes, buy springs, you're looking at around $27.25 for that motor. And the Scorpion motor comes with the good brushes and springs. Are the G7 brushes, which is the best Pro Slot brush, and it has the red springs on it. So that's money you don't have to spend because it's already there. So you're looking at like kind of $27.25 versus $59 to have those two motors with the same brushes, same springs in them. So, of course, the metal in-bell motors, which I got, where's that picture at? There it is. The metal type in-bell motors, of course, you can't change brushes and springs. $12 retail, and I don't know what to say about that motor. I mean, it's a $12 motor. It's made in China. You can't do anything to it as far as changing brushes and springs versus the other two motors, which you can kind of service by changing the brushes and springs over time as the brushes wear down. You can pop the old brushes out, clean the com up a little bit, put some new brushes in, and hopefully the motor runs as good after you do that as it did before, maybe even runs better. Everyone's mileage varies on that situation. So again, when it comes to the inexpensive, cheaper motors, whether they be $12 up to $60, those are all made with Chinese parts or Chinese setups. Two of the motors are just Chinese armatures. Of course, the Red Sealed Pro Slot motor, again, with the American-made arm, is a Chinese setup. Cans, magnets, and bell. So you can't get away from China or Chinese parts when it comes to the low-end motors. It's like even the 16 and Super 16D Pro Slot motors, unless they have an American-made arm in them, everything is made in China. So it comes down to economics with these motors. A lot of people think because they're sealed or the end bells are staked that things can't be modified. We're not going to go into any great details, but I mean, like I've always said, if it comes apart, it can probably be taken apart in some way, shape, or form. Or that perception is always there that can be done. So I don't think there's a whole lot of cheating, let's say, with these motors going on. And if there is, it's very obvious because either the seal's broken or the stakes are bent over. But you can, good close eyeball on the motors, you can tell if they've been cheated up or not. So it comes down to economics. And that's kind of like, again, like, okay, so here's a question for you, Shane. So when you run like a Phoenix type motor or a Retro Hawk or a Hawk 7 or those type motors with the metal end bells, how many races do you typically get out of one of those motors?
So a Phoenix motor, I generally get practice and a race out of it one time,
Okay.
and then I'll use it for like a practice motor for the next race,
Okay.
and then I'll buy another one.
Right.
That's just me. I feel that the fresher. I feel like the newer one's just a faster.
Gotcha.
Hawk 7. I have 4. I think still in the motor box, and I'll probably get maybe 2-3 races out of them, and
Okay.
then generally the brushes are gone.
Okay. Or the brakes.
Right. And then you said Retro Hawk.
Yeah, I mean, any of those metal type in-bell motors, like,
I mean, I'd say on average, this is just me and how I am.
right.
You know, I try not to race them more than maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
That's practicing and racing. So depending on the track and the day, I could almost put a race worth of practice on it. So it's like racing that same motor twice.
Okay. So 3 races max is about what you get out of them.
Right.
Okay. So I'm kind of a one and done kind of guy, like race them once, go back, use them for practice motors. If I think it's got enough brush left and the motor's still
Stick to it.
it's still spiffy and it's still got good brakes, yeah, I might race it a second time. But you know, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that say, well, I can get 10 races out of one of them motors, and
Right.
I'm not saying they can't.
Right.
A lot of it depends on like what kind of track they're running on, and mainly what the voltage is.
I mean, I've took my old motors, or what I considered old, and I've sold them before.
That's right.
You
So
know,
have I.
I
Yeah.
took them out of the car. People be, what are you going to do with them? Oh, I'm throwing them away, I guess.
Right.
Buy them for me how much you want. I don't know. Go buy me a Coke and a bag of chips, and it's yours.
Right.
You know,
Right.
or here. You know.
Right.
I don't want it.
Right.
You can do something with it. Have fun.
Right. So I mean, basically, I mean, you know, I talked to one of the faster retro racers today about this, and I said, okay, so like if you're going to a big retro race and you're running Retro Hawks, and you know, how many races do you get out of the motor? And he's like, it's one and done, because you know you're looking for peak performance, brakes go away. You know, those cars are a little heavier than say flexi cars. So again, I mean, how many races you can actually get on one of these motors, it depends on a lot of things. You know, like not only, like I said, the track and mainly the power, but car weight would have a lot to do with it.
Mileage varies.
Right. So, you know, I'm thinking probably most guys tops can probably get maybe 5 races out of them. A lot of it has to do with how you break the motor in, how much brush you wear away breaking the motor in. You know, if you're dipping it in water, or you dip it too long, you're taking brush life off of it. You're shortening the length of the motor or the life of the motor. So now with, like, say, a Pro Slot 4002 FK, how many races do you normally get out of one of those? Before you have to change brushes. And well, let's just say yeah, I guess that's the same thing. I mean, I take it you probably change your brushes and springs on your motors before you actually race them.
I usually, when I'm on the power supply.
Right, with the stock brushes?
Or from when I first buy the motor brand new, I get rid of the brushes and springs.
Okay.
You know, I put the good brushes, good springs in. Some of them have Coford, some of them have the regular Pro Slot, some of them have the G7 Pro Slot, and some of them have both.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
You know, I change that, radius it, break it, and do all that jazz. And normally I don't really fool with that motor until I feel that it's slowing down.
Okay. So what do you think, how many races do you think you normally get out of, say, a 4002 Blue Seal FK motor before?
I mean, I'm still racing motors that are probably 3 or 4 years old.
Okay. Well,
I'd say I get a good year out of them.
Okay, so roughly, give me a.
I'd say 15 races races maybe.
Okay, out of an FK
Give
motor.
or take.
Okay.
Some more than others. I mean, I've had some motors that I've raced once, and that was all they had in them. And then I've had other motors. It's just like this thing just keeps going.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm kind of like.
And then I've got some FK motors, like any other motors, that no matter what I do from the get go, they were never good. And it's just like, you know.
Right, like any inexpensive, low-end Chinese-made motor,
it's
right?
Just, you know, basically you're standing on one end of the table and you roll the dice.
Right,
you know?
right. And I think people kind of have to accept that if that's the motors they want to run. So,
right.
And I don't think any one brand is better than another brand or make or as far as.
I mean, I've had to buy less FK type motors where you can change the brushes and springs than I've had to buy the completely sealed motors.
Right. So, yeah, because basically, I mean, it comes down to economics when it's all said and done. So, you know, a lot of people say, well, this is a $12 motor. I'd rather run these because these are 12 and these are $21 and they're more money and I don't want to run them. But most people don't like look at the big picture. So, you know, if you take that, I guess we'll call it $27 Blue Seal Pro Slot motor by the time you change brushes and springs, if you get like 12 races out of one of those, that's only costing you like $2.27 a piece or a race.
Right.
Okay. Where if
those races happen to be a money race and you win, then
right,
you know, and hey,
right. So like, but if you buy the $12 metal in bell motors and you only get one race out of it, well, that's $12. You know what I'm saying? Like a one and done situation. So
it's almost like going to dinner. Once you eat and you're done, you pay your tab. You'll never see that meal again.
Right. So basically, like if you take a $12 motor, you get one race out of it, it's $12. If you take and get 3 races out of it, it costs you $4 a motor. And even if you get 5 races out of it, it costs you $2.40 a motor.
Right.
So then it goes in the trash because you can't do anything with it. Where if you take a Pro Slot sealed motor and say you get 12 races out of it, that's costing you $2.27 a race to run it. And then like you have to change brushes, you put another, even if you have to change the springs, so you put another $5 in the motor. Now you're going to get another 12 races out of it. It just keeps getting less and less and less per race to run that motor.
Right.
So, and then you got like I said, then you've got the Red Seal motor, which is $59.
Right.
So how many races how many races are you going to get out of that? So I was thinking about this and I thought, well, last year at the 24-hour enduro race, that was the motor we had to run in the 24-hour race was the 4007 Scorpion motors. American-made arm, assembled in America, Chinese setup. Those had G7 brushes, 8 teams, 16 motors. Now, every team at some point in the race had to change their motors because the motor brushes, were gone. They were gone. So that's a whole nother subject because we don't know that, we could sit there and say, well, maybe Koford brushes would have been better, but we don't know that because we didn't do it that way. And the second part of that is when we build motors, whether we build them or we put the better brushes in them, we never expect to run those motors like 12 hours.
Right.
Because a lot of the team, like most teams, I would say got 12 to 13 hours out of their motor before they had to change it. On the other hand, the winning team, they ran their motor for 17 hours before they changed it. So if you take that 17 hours and you break that down into 24-minute races, like, normal race that's 3-minute heats, 8 heats, that's 42 and a half races. And if it's 2-minute races or 2-minute heats, 16-minute races, 17 hours comes out to almost 64 races. It's like 63.75 races. So we'll say 63 races you get out of that $59 motor. So basically it's costing you 90 cents, 92 cents a race to run that motor, like 63 races. And it running 3-minute heats, that's 42 races, it's $1.40 a race. And, that's the thing, like, I don't know that after the enduro, after you're running, well, I mean, it'd be like any other time. I mean, I've run those Scorpion motors down to like not having a whole lot of brush left. I don't keep track of how many races I put on each particular motor.
Right.
But, I mean, even if you're getting, if you buy a $60 motor and you get 12 races out of it before you have to change the brushes, you're talking, a couple bucks a race to run the motor. Well, yeah, it wouldn't be, like I said, 12 races, I guess, 60 bucks it's going to be between probably $4.50 a race to run that motor. But you can go ahead and put new brushes in it and run it again. But, again, we ran these things like, okay, so like if you take the motors that we ran for 12 hours, that comes out to 30 24-minute races. So that's $1.96 each. And then if you ran it in 16-minute races, which is 12 hours, that'd be 45 races. And that would be $1.31 a race. And that's like before you change the brushes. So the 4002 motor or 4007 motor with the Red Seal, the Scorpion, with the American arm, it costs more money, but in the long run, it's actually cheaper for you to run. You're going to get more races out of it, and you can change the brushes and springs in it when they wear out, and hopefully the motor comes back. If it doesn't, then you have to buy another one. That initial cost is a stinger at $60, but over time, it's actually cheaper to run those motors than it is the $12 motors. So it comes down to economics. And I mean, like years ago, we were running puppy dogs in the retro cars. Every year there was a 6-hour enduro at Columbus. And that was the first time because back then we were running puppy dog motors. And,
right.
we ran one motor the whole race, and it was as fast at the end of the race as it was at the beginning of the race. So after the race, Randy's like, "You gonna service that motor?" And I'm like, "No, we're gonna just keep running it." Like,
right.
Because my brushes weren't even half gone after 6 hours. So I wound up running that race for 22 races, 22, 24-minute races. And then it was like, we'll service it because now the brushes are down, down to where they're getting pretty short. So the Chinese motors with the American arms, whether you service them or not, they're great little motors. And even if at the end of the deal, let's say you run that motor for 20 some races and you change the brushes and it doesn't come back, well, you can take it apart and then you can cut the comm, and you know what, you can and get the arm rebalanced, and you know what, you can have a heck of a practice motor.
Right.
It's not like you're gonna throw it in the trash. It's still a serviceable piece that can be used for something. So, like I said, I mean, I gotta back up. So there's basically, there's an example right there where if you needed to run 17 hours with Bendel in-bell motors, you'd probably use 42 of them at a cost of $504 versus one motor at $59. So I'm not trying to change anybody's opinion or their rules or anything, but it's just things to think about in the long run. So
that's just like conversations we've had over the shows about, running the FK seal motors or the metal in-bell motors versus the completely built motors.
Oh, you mean build your own motors?
Right.
Built motors. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right. because like, East Coast Flexi Series, they run at least one class where you can take the 4002 motors, Pro Slot 4002 FK motor, Blue Seal,
Right.
$21 motor, and you can take them apart, cut the comms, balance the arms, and then service them over time. And they have a really healthy series with doing that program. And then they run,
Right.
I think
I
that,
think that'd be a good series to start too, with the FK motors like that, being allowed to build them just to get more people interested in actually building the true built motor,
right. Yeah, because that's always the argument too. Like, what is cheaper, sealed motor racing or built motor racing? Okay, so before we get into that, I mean, the thing is, it depends on how far a person wants to take it. I mean, there's guys out there that'll buy 100 $12 motors to go to a big race. Okay, well, for $1,200, you can build a lot of C cans. You can build a lot of D cans. You can build a lot of like mini motors. Like you could take Scorpions, puppy dogs, whatever. You could build those.
Yeah.
And
$1,200, you can have some pretty good Hero Sport motors,
Right, but the thing is, if your guy's going to buy, I don't care if he even buys 20 $12 motors to go to a race, you can still build other motors for less money and get more play time out of them than you will those 20 motors. Like,
so it's like I've always said, to race built motors, the first initial expense, I mean, if you buy the comm lathe and the magnet zapper and then the tools, the blueprint, then yes, the first expense is by far way more, than running sealed motors.
Right.
But then it's like, I got motors that are built motors I've been racing for 5+ years. You know what I mean? So it's like, how much does it cost me to race that motor now,
Right. So I mean, if you're gonna buy 20 $12 motors, that's $240.
Right.
So my opinion, you could probably build, I guess 8 Pro Slot 4002 FKs for the same money or less.
Right.
And have more consistent motors and still be able to service them down the road.
I mean, especially now,
but
the FK motors and what John's doing at Pro Slot. I mean, those motors have advanced so much, just as far as the quality you get now.
Right. But
I mean, years ago, you get them and the brushes were all jacked up.
Right.
Now it's just like, the only thing I really need to do to this thing is throw a little fingernail polish on the seal, brushes and springs, and break it in.
Right. And then, like going back to what you said, I mean, in order to build motors, you need to have power supply.
Right.
You don't have.
That's the thing is, it's like, okay, you can't really count a power supply because, I mean, regardless of what the motor is, you're going to have that power,
I know, but I'm just saying, okay, so we'll take that out of the equation. But like to build the 4002 FKs, basically you just need some simple alignment tools. You need like an armature slug if you got to replace a bearing or whatever. You got to have an alignment tool to check your hood alignment. You got to need a little Phillips screwdriver, maybe a little slotted screwdriver. There's no magic in this. I mean, like, right. I mean, you just pull the motor apart, and then, if you don't have a comm lathe, you need, you have to send your arm out and get it cut, get the comm trued, but you're going to send it out to get it balanced anyway. I mean, that's if you're going to race 4002 FK motors where you can open them up and work on them, first thing you want to do is take it apart and send your armature out and get it rebalanced, get the comm cut. Like, there's, because the balancing is all over the place on all these cheap Chinese motors.
Maybe you think race it once just to get a heat cycle.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, right. I would. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I were okay. So if I knew I was gonna race those motors and I was gonna be able to take them apart and I was gonna be able to service them, I would take brand new motors and I would throw them in my cars and I would run them on the track. I would get them hot
Mm-hmm.
with the stock brushes, springs, and the seal on it. I'd go home and tear it apart, and I'd throw the brushes and springs in the trash. I'd take the armature out, and I'd send it out to an armature service to get rebalanced and comp cut.
Right.
And while that's gone, you can make sure your hoods are aligned. And
yeah, I was going to say before, if it was allowed, you can get the comps tied, but I mean, those are coming tied.
they've been tied for over a year or two now. So
yeah, so like you don't even have to
Right.
push. So, I mean, yeah.
Right. So, and again, you know, you got $21 in the motor, $27 in the motor with good brushes and springs. You're going to spend, you know, if you send one armature out, I mean, you could spend with postage, return postage and postage there. I mean, you could be anywhere from, probably $8 to $11.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't send one armature out. I mean, if you're gonna go run these motors and you're allowed to do them, I would probably do 4 at a time, at least 2, but I'd probably do 4 at a time. And
For me, it's always, I don't know what it is about me. I don't know if you ever noticed whenever I've sent you arms, it's always an even number.
right,
I don't know what
Right.
it is. It's just me, I guess.
right. So to each his own. And but I guess getting back to the main topic, I mean, you just can't get away from Chinese motors. There's
Right.
you cannot. I mean, like when I worked at RJR, at the time it cost us like 90 cents to build an end bell, just the end bell. By the time you bought the blank end bell, had it molded, and you put a bushing in it, you put the hardware on it, the price of the screws, the cups, the hardware, the end bell, the bushing, you had 90 cents in it with labor.
Right.
Okay. I mean, even though we were kind of fully automated, if you will, when it came to the screws, you know, like, you know, we had a power driver kind of thing that it would run down and it was like a torque wrench. The screw would get so tight and it would quit twisting the screw so you didn't break screw off in them. So even with that, I mean, you know, if you're building, if a guy can build an end bell a minute, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're paying a guy $10 an hour and you divide that by 60, okay, so 12.
Yeah, you're doing math, so I'm just going to listen.
I mean, you're talking like what, 20 cents a piece in the labor just to put all that together.
Right.
So, you know, take that away, and then you've got like 70 cents in parts. So we had 90 cents in an end bell, you know, C-can assembled end bell. At that time, you could buy like these Chinese motors with the metal end bells. You could buy them for like 60 cents, a complete motor. Okay? So like, that's why you can't build a cheap motor in America, because of labor and then a difference in price cost. I mean,
Right.
that's why, like, I mean, for years, ProSlot made C-can end bells, hardware, and all that stuff here in the States, cans, end bells. But then they went and they made a cheaper cost C-can motor in China, and eventually phased out the American cans and end bells, and then used the Chinese stuff because it was so much cheaper. And they were able to keep the price of their C-can motors lower because they were using the Chinese setup. So, yeah, it's you're just, I know, you know, I know there's this sentiment about China and stuff, and that's fine. I understand that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's not going to be a replacement for that stuff in America.
Right.
Not unless we want to pay
I mean,
people.
think about it. Almost any hobby that you're in, something of that hobby comes from China.
Right. Well, yeah, you look at the RC industry, I mean, like almost everything comes out of China. I mean, a huge portion of it. And I mean, in slot cars, it's not just the motors. I mean, it's, you know, like we got wheels coming out of China, we got braid coming out of China, lead wire coming out of China, small spacers and bits and pieces, some chassis come out of China. I mean, bushings come out of China, axles come out of China. You know, there's even some bodies that come out of China. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Chinese parts, and there was one Facebook page, you know, it was like, how much slot car stuff is made in America? It's like, well, you know, these certain things come from this country, and these certain things come from this
Parma
country.
make a guide flag that was made in America?
Yeah, their guide flags molded in America, made in America.
Right.
But then when you like look at the Cahosa guides and the HP guides,
Right.
Gugu's guide, those are all made out of the country, not necessarily in China, but they're not made in America.
Right.
So
I'm just trying to think who makes it. I guess that'd be a good thing. Who makes a guide right now? It's technically made in America.
Parma's the only one I know of. Because
Right.
China, or not China, but JK is a question mark because I don't know if it's molded in China or if it's molded here. I do not know.
Either.
But Parma is molded in America. So it's like the only guide that's molded in America. So
Right. I mean, that's the start. If you're wanting to go full American, you can start with the guide.
start with the guides, and I mean it's like the two most popular FlexiCar chassis aren't even made in America.
Right.
So, you know, one's made in China, one's made in Canada.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. Does made in America include North America? Like Canada is in North America.
Right.
I don't know how that plays out, you know, in people's minds. So,
you know me, I can only do so much political stuff, and it's like, yeah, I'm good.
right. But it's like back to the motors. I mean, one group's talking, we want to go all American motors. Well, okay, good luck with that, because, you know, you here's the two things. You can get an all-American made motor in a C-can, except for the magnets and the brushes, because the magnets and the brushes come from Asia. Now the can, the in-bell, the hardware, all that other stuff, and that American-made motor is all made in America.
Right.
But it's a $73 motor.
Right.
So again, if the sentiment is
which technically still isn't all American because of the brushes and the magnets.
correct, because the brushes and the magnets are made.
I mean, if you imagine if the magnets and the brushes from America, it'd probably be what, $125 motor. No, it wouldn't be that much more. It would probably be another, at least probably $20 more on the retail end. Gotcha.
Because I don't know what the current price of an American molded magnet would be.
Right.
I know what it was 20 years ago. And even 20 years ago, nobody used it. Doesn't, okay, so in the magnets, there's molded magnets.
All right.
No, you're okay, because it needs to be explained. The molded magnets are made in Asia. Like the ceramic molded magnets are made in Asia. Now, there were magnets that were machined in America, but the magnet material that the magnets were machined from still came from Japan. Okay? Because Japan...
I mean, that's the thing. Is you probably get a magnet made in America, but China still has the better magnet.
Oh, at 3 times the cost in America 20 years ago was the difference between a Japanese magnet.
As we all are, we always want the best of everything. So it's just like, you know, okay, I mean, do you want to be
Right. See, 20 years ago, we had as good or better magnet material available here in the States than what we got out of Japan.
Right.
But it was 3 times the cost.
Right.
Okay. And then at that time, Chinese really wasn't much into the ceramic magnet deal. Now, they're like a major player in ceramic magnets.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they are now just because of all the electrical motors that are in all the electronics that, you know, America lives off of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But see, here's the thing. So, like, when you think about all this, so let's go back to the 60s. And
well, you go back to the 60s, I'll just listen.
Okay, so like if you go back to the 60s, the most popular motor in slot racing was Mabuchi, and they were all made in Japan. Okay, and like I'm a child of the 60s, and so many viewers are. I can remember when if something said made in Japan, that was like considered junk, and you don't buy that.
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing a post like that. I think you even posted it on Facebook,
Right,
and a comment or whatnot about it.
right. And then like China became the junk maker of the world, let's say. And then Japan, then people started looking at Japan like, well, that Japan stuff's pretty quality stuff. And they always,
compared to China stuff.
right. But at the same time, you can get something made in America, but you can go to Japan and get it made cheaper, and maybe Mexico and get it made cheaper, but the cheapest is going to be in China.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is as much as people want stuff to be made in America, people also want the cheapest because the cheapest brings the most value,
well,
resale.
well, like I always say, everybody wants GM wages, but they want to pay Chinese prices. So,
Right.
or Walmart prices. So, the thing is, there's a lot of American companies that get the stuff made cheaply in China.
Right.
They bring it here and they make good profit on it, which then that employs American people. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Some cases it takes away American jobs, but then it employs Americans too. Then, companies have to pay taxes on those profits made. The employees that those profits pay for, there's income taxes and all that stuff taken out and paid for. So it's just China's just a cheaper source for a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, it's like I said, I mean, here we are arguing this debate, China, America, on all of our Chinese made computers and phones. Like, I mean, if TVs,
you can just look to your left, look to your right, you can probably see 3 or 4 things that are made in China.
Right. So
or have made China parts in them.
Right. So if a 50-inch TV in China is $1,000, and it was $5,000 for an American-made TV, what TV do you think is going to sell the most?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're all throwaway anyway. So, again, our American companies went there looking to get stuff made cheaper.
Right.
And faster. And then there's other factors too. I mean, you have to deal with EPA and, imagine you had a factory making TVs. So you've got this huge factory. We'll say it's 50,000 square feet. Well, that costs you money to keep that open and heat it and cool it and, put machinery in it and tooling.
On the machinery. And
right. And you got to pay insurance on the building. You got to pay insurance for, you know what? You go to China. Right. Yeah. You can go to China. Now you don't have to pay employees. You don't have to pay insurance on employees. You don't have to pay taxes on employees.
You're just buying the product.
Right. That's why it went to the way it is.
I mean, that's probably why in China there's so many industrial factories versus here in America.
Right. Right. So, not defending China in any way. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. There's defending China and there's facts, and those are the facts.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Those are the facts.
Yeah.
So, we'll go back to the built motor thing, but it depends on what type of motor. It depends on what type of built motors you're building, and I mean, as you go up the chain in slot car racing, and you're doing C-can motors and cobalt motors, and you're going to have more tools and hones, and that gets. I mean, it's no different in life. Like when you decide you're going to start fixing your car, fixing things around the house, you have to go buy tools.
Right.
But tools are usually a one-time purchase, unless you break it or something, or you lose it.
Right.
I mean, most guys that, I'd say most guys that are in their 50s or 60s, they probably still have the tools that they bought when they were teenagers or in their early 20s.
It's funny you say that because, I mean, whenever I was in high school and started driving, I'm thinking, okay, I had a car. It's like I need a tool set.
Right.
If the car breaks down, I can fix it.
Right.
And then just the other day at work, I was looking at another tool set, And I
Mm-hmm.
was showing my brother the old tool set I bought when I was in high school, and he's like, "You still have this thing?" And I'm like, "Nothing wrong with it."
Yeah, right.
You know, I was like, "It's I take care of it.
Well,
It's a tool, you know."
especially if you bought good tools. You know what I'm saying? If you bought Craftsman or Snap-on or
Oh no, this probably something made in China from
okay.
Sam's. It's still good though. It's got the job done all these years, you know.
Right. Yep. I mean, I've got good tools and I've got some cheap tools. It depends on
Right.
if it's something I don't have. How many times may I use this in the future? Am I going to go pay $40 for it? Or am I going to go to Harbor Freight and get it for $5? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like me, the last expensive, or what I consider expensive tool, is an angle grinder. It's like, yeah, you know, I could buy a nice angle grinder from work, and it's going to cost $200.
Right.
But the Harbor Freight got one for like $45, and it's done the, you know.
Right. You got done what you wanted to, and
Yeah.
you know, it's not like you're using it every day, 8 hours a day. So,
No.
yep. So, all right. So we have some giveaways tonight, and if anybody on Facebook is friends with Brian Ambrose, Brian has been playing, I guess, how I'm going to say. He's been making these, well, he's been covering his slot card box with this like epoxy paint
He's been
system.
practicing social distancing.
Right. And this epoxy system that he's doing to create these finishes, every one is a unique piece. Like, I don't think you can duplicate
Right.
one side to the next side.
Not with the way he's doing it now.
Right. So he's having fun. I've watched a couple of his videos while he's doing it. It's kind of cool. So now he's making some what he calls pit mats, but I'm going to call them like pit boards because they're actually, I think they're wood and they have this epoxy paint coating on them. So
he's got a post that he put up that actually says, I think it's MDF.
I didn't see that post, so I'll go with what you
It
say.
could be wrong, so don't hold me to that.
Okay. So anyway,
post saying what he's using.
okay, so he's taking a piece of wood and he's pouring this epoxy paint system on it, and he's getting these kind of unique finishes. So there's a picture of one, and there's a picture of, I guess I call this more of a natural finish. Like it's almost like kind of a light oak, I guess, or maybe a medium oak. I mean, it looks more like a wood. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure that that's just not clear on wood. I think that's something he poured, and then it came out that color and that kind of pattern. So you basically, we're going to give away one, and you contact Brian Ambrose on Facebook, and you get your choice of this one or this one, that one or this one. So I guess this one to me I would call orange because it's like an orange, kind of burnt brown or burnt orange. And the other one is more of a like marble looking, like if you sliced a rock and it had this pattern inside the rock.
Quartz or whatever it's called.
Yeah, there you go, like a quartz type rock. So we'll call one rock, and we'll call this one wood, because that one looks more like a rock finish, and this one. But tell Brian which one you want if you win, and who knows, maybe he'll maybe offer you something different or something. I don't know. So, but that's between you and.
He's pretty busy playing with all that kind of stuff,
Yep.
trying different patterns out or whatnot.
Yep, but that's between you and Brian which one you want. So, and we have two 10-packs of Mid-America braid to give away, and those you will contact Roger Schmidt on Facebook, Mid-America Naperville, to claim your 10 pair of braids. So we're going to give away 3 things. So the first thing we will give away is Brian's pit board, and the lucky winner is, pull out one, there we go. John Schroeder, I don't know, Schroeder, I guess, because it got an O in there instead of an A. John Schroeder, contact Brian Ambrose for your I don't know if he's got a name for these things. Well, his racing team is BS. So for your BS pit board. So lucky winner for 110-pack Mid-America Braid. The first winner is Jeff Hennis. He's an OCC racer. Jeff Hennis. Contact Roger Schmidt for your 10-pack of Braid. And the second winner is Bobby Davis Jr. Bobby Davis Jr. Contact Roger Mid-America for your free 10-pack pair of Braid. And there's no races coming up. And that's all I have for tonight. I don't know if
So while we were doing the show, I thought of a good word.
Okay. Shane's got the word. Economics. Okay. EC.
Yeah, I don't even ask.
ONOMICS. Economics.
I could say it. It may sound funny because people say I have an accent. I don't know if I do or if I don't.
And if economics is too big a word, you can just put down economy.
Yeah. So,
does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
I still think it's funny. I go to like Chicago and that area or whatnot, or, talking to the California friends, they're like, you got an accent. It's like, if you say so.
Yeah. You need an interpreter.
Yeah. You
need an interpreter. So that's all I got for episode 140. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Yeah, I had there's a couple out there. You emailed me questions. We will talk about that next week. And we'll go from there next week, episode number 141. Be safe, wash your hands, wear your mask if you have to, wear your gloves if you have to. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. There was a couple of places that looked like they were going to get to go race this weekend, but apparently they didn't fit in the proper categories for that to happen.
Right.
So
I think with Mid-South, there's been rumors of June, but again,
yeah.
It all depends.
Well, see, because I'm in Indiana, right. I race in Illinois, and I race in Michigan, and I race in Ohio.
Well, it's to the point where wherever they say I can go racing, it's throw me on a plane and I'm going.
Well, all four states have different rules right now, and like Illinois, they're shut down till I guess June 1st, so there's going to be no racing in Illinois until June. Michigan. Sounds like maybe racing can maybe start after May 16th.
Right.
Ohio hasn't announced. Well, Ohio, possibly the earliest.
Because I think I've seen something today about them rescheduling the Enduro for the OCC.
Yeah, because so Ohio, I don't think there will be any racing until after May 16th at the earliest. Right. And Indiana, we have not announced what's going on here as far as extensions, and then
kind of excited about the first race because I imagine hopefully people have been working on their stuff, painting bodies, building new things. So the first race, wherever it is or whenever it is, there should be some pretty fast guys with some pretty nice stuff.
Right. My thing is, I don't know that everybody's going to show up for the first. A lot of people are still going to be cautious, I guess, is the way to put it.
A little gun shy.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I mean, Timmy Bottoms, he's offered that, the first race that, people feel that the first race we're allowed to actually legally race or whatever you want to call it, he would provide masks and whatnot.
Maybe he can provide COVID-19 tests.
Yeah.
Get your test before you go home.
At work now we have to answer 3 questions to get our temperature took every day.
Oh.
And then there's 5 job sites I deliver to that 500 plus yards before the actual entrance to the job site, they got their little COVID-19 test tent put up where you have to answer questions and they scan your forehead and whatnot.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Oh yeah, I get it. It cracks me up. They hand you a pen and a clipboard. Fill this out. It's like, can you just hand me the piece of paper?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the sooner.
I don't know where that clipboard or that pen's dead. I got a pen. I can lean up against the truck and write what I need to write on this thing.
Yeah, the sooner we get through this, the better off we'll be. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So until next week, episode number 141. Everyone be safe and have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. We're out of here.
See you later.